Well, actually, I was going to be a printer when I was a little kid because my dad was a printer and a newspaper editor. And I thought that he worked too hard, worked too many hours. Little did I realize that I was going to be working a lot more hours than that. I spent my summers working on a farm for my brother-in-law Philip and enjoyed that a lot, and working with animals, so I decided I might go into veterinary medicine. So when I finished high school, I went to Kansas State and took a pre-vet course, but I needed money to go to college, so I joined the Army and spent 2 years there. During that time, I was getting qualified for the GI Bill, which paid for the majority of my education. I decided during those 2 years in the Army that I, didn't care for dogs, and the only good horse was a dead horse, so I decided that I would go into medicine and be a surgeon. I got out, came back to Kansas at KU and did pre-med, and then when I finished that I went to medical school at Kansas. I enjoyed that a lot, but I was just waiting to get into surgery, so I took my surgical internship after medical school, and then a 4-year surgical residency, then 2 years of pediatric surgery residency. A surgical residency is planned so that you can start out helping, assisting, and watching and seeing how people who have a lot more experience than you do approach problems. But then you very quickly get into doing simpler procedures. You get to stay in the hospital and take care of a lot of patients, and that's where the hours come in. We would work typically 130 to 140 hours a week. We went to London for a year where I did open heart surgery at the Hospital for Sick Children, Great Ormond Street, for that year, and then came back to Galveston, where the only place I could get a job doing whatever I wanted to do. I was working over at the Old Mercy Hospital and working with a bunch of residents who were rotating through pediatric surgery. And the one menial really operation that they had was circumcisions. These were not on newborns, these were on older kids who hadn't been circumcised for one reason or another as newborns. So the first operation that I did independently was a freehand circumcision. That means there's no clamps involved. You just hold up the foreskin with a couple of clamps, whack it off with a big blade, pull it back, stop the bleeding, sew it together, and do that. And by the time I was done with that year, or that summer of working at the Old Mercy Hospital, I could do one of those circumcisions in 12 minutes, skin to skin, which was a pretty fast operation. The last operation I ever did was a freehand circumcision on Halloween of 1999, and since I was going to retire that day, I talked one of my partners into trading one case that I had for this case that he had on, a freehand circ. I went down and talked to the parents and told them what the deal was and that I was retiring and would they mind if I did their child's circumcision. And I did that one in 8 minutes. Well, I don't know about what moment was the proudest moment I had. I was pleased with most of the operations I did, whether they were complex heart operations or circumcisions, which are pretty simple. But I think just doing a good job was the thing that I was most pleased with, and I had a reputation for being a good surgeon, and that was very satisfying to me.